So do you know where I really fell in love with Jesus? It was, so we got married and all of that was good. A year later, I was climbing a mountain in Donegal with some men, because that's what Christian men done. They climb mountains, and they got to the top and they were, I don't know, we're supposed to feel holy on the top of the mountain. It didn't do anything for me. I just had sore legs. But I came down, I sound like Moses, I came down from the mountain. And we were praying just with these regular guys. And God, the first time I ever heard God really clearly. And just so you don't feel like you're an insufficient Christian if you're not hearing God. I didn't hear God like audibly. I don't get that. But just in my head, whatever it was, I kept hearing the same thing. You need to tell Heidi. Heidi's my wife. You need to tell her everything you've done. And I was God, that sounds like a real bad idea. Because I never told her. So I called her that night. See, I usually say I'm a bad man. My tendency is to be a bad man, but God sees me as a good man. But my tendency would be to lie to her, never say the things that I've done. So I called her that night. I'm obedient. That's what I was getting at. I try to be obedient. I think God loves our obedience, even when we don't feel like it. And so I called her and I said, Heidi, I need to tell you something. And God was working on her because she said to me, you don't need to tell me anything. And I said, no, I do. And she says, I know, Darren, you just don't need to say it. And I said, I do. So I went home and I told her 50%. 50% of everything I'd done. Everything. And these kids here, so the details are not necessary. And she turned around, and I remember, I have such a terrible memory, I remembered, and she said, it's okay. She said, I forgive you, and I love you. And then Jesus made sense. Then Jesus made sense, because then I saw him with my own eyes. And I felt his forgiveness in my own heart. I'm going to skip the story a bit. Do you know when I told her the other 50%? I've been loving Jesus 8 years. I told her the other 50% 6 months ago. No, you can't put this online. My wife was not so gracious the second time. You know, she said, I'll not tell you what she said, but it wasn't as pretty. But it was the same outcome. I forgive you. And bear in mind, my wife has had so much hurt. She's been so hurt by so many people her whole life. And the person that she loves and should love her the most, I've contributed so much to her pain. And she still says it's alright. I went home on Wednesday with 2 days off, and we argued like cats and dogs. And at the end of it, I walk out the door, and she says, I love you. And I said, I love you back, and we do. God is long-suffering. And people tell me they don't think God is real. I've seen them, I've heard him speak, more often than not through my mom and my dad. And my wife Heidi. And because of my wife Heidi, she led my little brother Mark to Jesus. And then we got to lead my mom and dad to the Lord. And so while we're here, and I'm going to sing some songs, I know some of you probably like songs. I like them too. So while we're here is again back to my wife. And in the fall of 2013, she came to me, some Canadian missionaries came to our little church, and they said, they just talked about missionary stuff. And Heidi came out so excited, and she said, Darren, did God tell you? I said, no. She said, did he not tell you? I said, no, he didn't tell me anything. She said, God told me you were to leave your job. I said, no, here, hold on a minute. I said, we only, like my income was what we had. God gave me an incredible job running homes for adolescents with challenging behaviour and, mental disabilities. Brilliant job. We had a beautiful house on an acre of land with a river at the bottom. The kids that the doctor said we would never have, because she had heard her, said we had 3 kids, these beautiful kids, and life was good. But she said, you have to leave. And I said, no, because I'm prideful and stubborn. And 6 months later, God said to me, very clearly in my head again, he said, you leave now or don't bother your bottom. I don't know if God swears, but he was talking about my bottom. He said, if you're going to do it now, and if you're not, don't bother. And it was the first time in the 3 or 4 years since I was saved, I remember feeling the fear of God. Because God said to do something. And my flesh said, no, I don't want to do that, God. And God said, you're going to do it, or you're not. And that was a threat. God was threatening me. And I said, okay, God. So I went in the next day. Both my bosses were homosexual guys. And I got to share the gospel with them, explain why I was leaving this job. God gave me grace there too. And 3 months later, I was due to finalise all the contracts. I was in my car, ready to drive up to the head office. Our only income would have been my wife's 2-day-a-week part-time job. That was all we had. If I left my job, that was it. And that wouldn't have paid our mortgage for 1 week. In my car, Heidi called me on the phone just as I was going up. And she says, Darren, my job's after making me redundant. And I cried again. I said, God, what are you doing? You said leave our jobs and now we've no jobs. And he said, if you're ashamed of me now, I'll be ashamed of you. He said, if you deny me now, I'll deny you. And he doesn't do that to threaten us to be like big bad God. He does that because he knows what is good for us. And so we said, okay. And for 9 months we set up food banks, and we went into schools and we preached, and we travelled all across the UK and Ireland singing songs. And that year, no more than 3 days went by where we didn't lead someone to Jesus in our car, in our house, on the street, on the phone. And why I'm crying is because those were the most beautiful days of my life. There was no pressure to sell music or to make a living or anything out of it. It was just really clean. And that year, me and my little brother, who came to God, a very violent man, we led over 1,000 people in little church halls up in the hillsides to come to Jesus. Beautiful. But on May 24th, I think it was, I sat outside my kid's school, Elijah, my eldest boy, and I prayed this to God. I said, God, can you please let me go back to work? I just want to provide for my family. And I said these words really clearly. I said, I don't need to play music anymore. That's what I said. Because I was 34. I said, what am I doing playing music, chasing some kind of dream? I don't need. So I prayed that. I said, I don't need to play music anymore. And the very next day, so Sarah's here from our record label. Sarah's wonderful. The very next day, Word Records called. The very next day. And they said, will you come out to Nashville? And I came out. See, God, when you lay down what you really want, I think God picks it up. And he says, you can have it. But the heart's got to be right in it. And so God took 34 years of my life to get my heart right. And you know what the beautiful thing is? That every single thing I've ever done, every single thing, God has turned, like he's turned it. Sorry, I'm sniffling like a baby. But he's turned it around for his good, for my good. God's good, isn't he?
Yes.
That's a long story. So I'm out on this winter jazz party, the biggest tour in the world for any genre of music. I'm 36 years of age. These people at this radio station have been so good to us. Jeff, First time I met him, I knew he was a good man. I'm the worst marketer in the world. I told Jeff not to play our song. And that's God told him. Sarah looked at me like, what are you doing? But somehow God has turned an alcoholic and a thief and an adulterer and a violent bad man into somebody that he can use. And I don't pretend to be good. I'm not good on my own. But I'm good in him. Okay. You sing a song?